Hello, my very attractive Windows developer friend. My name is John, and in this video, we're going to be looking at improving your Windows terminal experience. So, as the amazing developer that I know you are, I'm guessing that you spend a large chunk of your time inside of the Windows terminal. And because we're good pals, you and me, let's face it, the Windows terminal out the box sucks balls. So we're going to change all of that in this video. So in this video, I'm going to show you how you can be much more productive when you're using the terminal. And we're going to do that by installing a bunch of plugins. So we're going to have a plugin which can allow you to jump between different directories really quickly. We're going to have one plugin which will allow you to do session management. So as soon as you close your session or reboot your computer, as soon as you fire it up again, you're going to get the same state. Another one, which is really useful, is being able to split a single terminal window into panes. So if you're trying to run a Docker, pushing into Git, running your local dev server, and you have to have all these different windows open, tabbing between them can be painful. So instead, let's just have one window, 4 panes, and we can do all of our work in a single view. None of that tabbing business. So by the end of this video, I promise you that you're going to be a lot more productive. You're going to learn loads of good stuff, and it's going to be super interesting. I pinky promise. Now, if you haven't come across one of my videos before, that is unfortunate for you. I feel very sorry for you. However, we can change everything, and if you want to do me an absolute solid, I reckon that you should smash the subscribe button right now. Now, I've heard that if you haven't hit the subscribe button, and more importantly, help me with the YouTube algorithm by clicking on the like button, a fairy will be killed by the end of this video. So, do not be a murderer, do not kill the fairies, click subscribe and like now. Now, assuming we've done that, enough of this waffling around, let's go on and start configuring our terminals for greatness. Before we start on our epic quest to terminal greatness, I'm going to do you a massive solid and save you a bunch of time. So instead of having to, squeeze and squint at the video, what I'm going to do is link to this tutorial I've created below, and this is going to make your life much easier. So in this tutorial, I've got all the software I'm using, there's links to additional videos on how to install the prerequisites, we've got all the plugins, we've got all the commands, there's troubleshooting tips. So I recommend you have this tutorial open while watching the video because it's going to make your life much easier. You're welcome. Now, before we get going, we will need a few prerequisites. The prerequisites are available and how to install them within a video which you can see right here. So we'll be using the Windows terminal. The reason why I'll be using this over the default terminal that comes with Windows is because we can start adding in background images, changing font sizes, tab between different types of terminals. So Windows terminal is a must-have essential for Windows developers in my opinion. Now today we're going to ditch all the Windows stuff, so see your PowerShell, see your Windows command prompt, and we're going to be looking at Bash. So in order to get a Bash prompt, we need to install a Windows distribution, and the one we're going to install is called Ubuntu. It's free. Go to the Windows Store again, click on Get, and it's going to install it. Now in order to run a Windows distribution on side of the Windows, then you're going to install Windows WSL2. So there's a full bunch of install instructions here. It's fairly simple, you just need to install a few bits and bobs. Potentially you might need to enable something on your BIOS. Again, there's a video right here which will walk you through all of this process. Now, whenever we're doing any theming or customization inside of the Windows terminal, you're going to need to install an additional font. Now, the reason for needing to install an additional font is because generally when when it's the prompt when doing out Git information, it's going to be using different glyphs that aren't really available when you're working with fonts, which would typically aim for the Microsoft Words, your notepads, that kind of stuff. So, to be a super cool developer, you want to be using developer fonts. And the one most used is called Nerd Fonts. So go to nerdfonts.com. You can click on this big downloady button, open up the font, click on the install button, jobs are good 'em. Now the one that I personally like using is called Theora Code. So Theora Code, you're not going to tell that much difference between them if I'm honest. However, I like to be a bit more different. You can see an example of it here. Just go over to the GitHub of Tonsky, and then just go to Theora Fira code, download it, same sort of process. You're going to get a file, open the file, there'll be a little install button on the top left. And remember, it's all available in this video here. Now the other thing, and the other side of our customization, the really easy thing is just giving our terminal a background desktop picture. So you can use your own desktop picture. If you want some ideas for some inspirations, there's this tutorial which is linked, which is called the 43 best minimalistic desktop wallpapers for free. And yeah, I picked one with a skull on it because I'm a dude, and who doesn't like a good old skull? So the desktop that we're going to be creating today is on the screen in front of us. As you can see, we've got our kick-ass skull. Yeah, metal, yeah. And then we've got some sweet sort of color theme going on here. So let's have a look at how we set all of this up. This is the easy bit, it takes about 3 seconds. So all we're going to do is click on this little down arrow, down chevron, go to settings. So as you can see here, I've got one which is called Tmux, and we'll get to Tmux later on. So clicking on settings is going to open up this jobby. After installing Ubuntu, you're probably going to have one which says bash. Click on the bash. Now this has changed in appearance slightly, very recently. So what you want to do is go to additional settings and then click on this appearance. Now there's some actual things here that you can name the terminal. So I'll call mine Tmux. You can set the starting directory, which is useful, and you can also set the icon. So I've done that, I just did a search on the Googles for a bash icon, so you can see that there. Now clicking on appearance is going to let you get to the good stuff. First you can define a color scheme. Now I won't cover how to create a color scheme in this video. Basically what you can see down the bottom here is this big open JSON file. And if you open the JSON file, let's do the Notepad++, please. What you'll notice is that you'll get this big file, and in here you can basically put in these arrays. And I've got loads of color schemes in here, but basically you have a scheme, you give it a name, you define some colors like this, and then with this name, say Campbell here, or Campbell PowerShell, or 1/2 dark, great names, you'll be able to pick this from here. Now underneath here you want to have your font face. You want to select this to be your Fira code if you're using Fira code, or you can use the nerd font if you want to use nerd font. Now because I am an old man, I recommend that you put your font size up a bit so you didn't have to do that squinting. Your eyesight won't get as devastated as mine because I've done a lot of squinting in my life. And then under here you can see that we've got the background image path, so you know what to do with that one. We want to have the stretch mode to full. We want to set the background opacity. I set mine to 57% to get it just sweet. And that's pretty much it. So going through Windows Terminal, make sure you have the right font, desktop image, color scheme. You're going to get something which looks like this. Friends, I feel absolutely terrible. I'm choked up with grief. And that is because I lied to you. I hope you forgive me. Now remember a few seconds ago when I said we'll be building everything within bash? That was a lie. And the reason why that's a lie is because step 1 is to install a brand new shell, and the shell we're going to install today is called Z shell, or pronounced Zhush. Now basically the reason why we want to swap from Z from bash is because we want to install plugins and themes, and there's a really handy extension which is part of the Zhush shell which will allow us to do that. Now the good news is that basically everything that you can do in bash, you can do in Zhush with exactly the same commands, so you don't really need to learn anything. All you basically need to do is switch them over and you'll never notice any difference really. Now the plugin which we want to install is called Zhush. So as you can see here we've got omyz.sh. I'll show you how to install it in a little bit. But the interesting thing about omyz is that we can install some themes and some plugins. So in terms of omyz, a theme is basically how we can customize our command prompt. And if you go to this theme page, you can see there's about 40 or 50 different themes. There's loads of them. And basically all you need to do in most of the cases is basically just set this name within a config file, and then your command prompt is going to be updated to be all nice and colourful. Now there's loads of options here. Make the one which use the one which makes you happy. I'm going to be using this one which is fairly minimalistic, which is called Gozilla. I've used a few of them. I change them up every once in a while. Again, use the one which makes you happy. Now, because you and me were good pals, you want to use my installation instructions to install Zhush and Oh My Zhush. The good news is it's basically just 5 command prompts, 5 terminals, commands even, to install everything. So all of this is going to make an assumption that you've got apt get install. If you don't know how to do that, Google it. It should be installed by default. But the first thing you want to do is sudo apt-get update. Make sure you're using all the latest packages, all that kind of stuff. Then you want to do sudo apt-get install zsh, so the Z shell. After you've installed the Z shell, Zhush, you want to set the Z shell to be your default shell. So every single time you open the terminal, it's going to open this rather than bash. So we can do that using the chcs -s $which zhush command. So if I just clean this, paste it in, you can see that now the Z shell is my default. Every single time that I create a new terminal, I'm going to get the Z shell. Now at the minute, your command will look a little bit different than mine, and that's because I've got this Gozilla theme installed. And that's the next thing we need to do, is look at how we can configure this. You install Oh My Zhush using curl. So back to our terminal, we want to do a sudo apt-get install curl. Always makes me think about going to the toilet whenever I heard the word curl. Now after you have curl installed, you've got this shush -c blah blah blah. Again, this is the reason why I created this tutorial. GitHub ends with install.sh. So if you go to my terminal, I've got mine installed, so I'm just going to get an error. But yeah, we want to install the Oh My Zhush. You'll get some pretty little rainbow when it's installed, and after it's installed, you're ready to open up the Zhush RC file and start adding in our themes and our config. In order to configure Oh My Zhush, you'll be working with a file which is called .zhushrc. And in this file, you can add in all your themes, all your plugins, all of that beautiful stuff. So in order for us to start editing it, I'm going to use Vim, but you can use Visual Studio Code if you really want to. So we just do the ~/.zhushrc, so .zshrc. So opening this up is going to give you this configuration file. Now when you open yours up for the first time, yours is going to have loads and loads of things in there. And if you actually look through all the different lines, you will notice that about 80% of the file is just comments. So example configs that you can add in, uncomment if you want to configure it. I basically take all of mine out because it makes it much easier. Now I'm going to go through line by line what my zhush.config looks like. So first off, we're going to ignore this first bit. So in a minute, we're going to install an additional extension which is called Tmux. Tmux is going to be really, really useful because it's going to allow us to do pane management and session management. So that's really cool. This is one of the highlights, I think, of the video, Tmux. But yeah, we'll ignore that for the time being. So the first thing which we need to have in our file is this export zhush equals $home/.o-my-zhush. So do not delete this file or this line, because doing that means that the plugins will not install. Now in this file we're going to be installing plugins in 2 ways. So the default way from Oh My Zhush is to have in this plugins equals, and then you put in some plugin names. So as you can see here, I've got one for Docker and I've got one for Z. So Z is really, really handy, and this is going to allow you to be a lot more productive. So what we can do with Z is jump between folders very quickly. So what we can do is say Z code, and you're going to jump to a code folder, and then you can do Z Umbraco, and you'll jump to the Umbraco folder. This means there's going to be no more cd ... cd ... cd ... change directory / change directory. And let's be honest, if you're working with a terminal, that is where most of our time gets wasted. So Z is one of the key reasons why installing Zhush and Oh My Zhush is really good. Now, if I'm honest, installing plugins manually through Oh My Zhush is a bit of a pain. Most of the plugins that you're going to install will involve going to a GitHub, cloning stuff, then it'll be left to you to manage everything yourself. This is the reason why when we're using Oh My Zhush, I recommend that you use a package manager. So just like we have npm for JavaScript and we have NuGet for .NET, we have a bunch of different package managers for Oh My Zhush, and the one that I like using is called Anti-Gen. So Anti-Gen is going to allow us to quickly and easily install different plugins and themes. So you can see it here at the top line, we've got source, tilde, and then a link to the Anti-Gen install directory. So we'll go through installing Anti-Gen very quickly in a minute. Then to install a plugin, you can see here that we can just do Anti-Gen bundle, and then we put in the plugin bundle name, whatever you want to call it, widget name. And then we can also really quickly and easily install a theme by using the Anti-Gen theme and then giving it a theme name. So remember when we looked at the Oh My Zhush theme page, all you basically need to do is grab any one of those themes names, whack it in here, and then finally we just need to do this Anti-Gen apply, and it's then going to install these plugins whenever the terminal is loaded. So this is super handy. So let's go back, have a quick look at the Anti-Gen. So if you go to Zhush users Anti-Gen, you're going to get, this is a package manager, it's going to help you be more efficient, all of that amazing stuff. Now there is a command here, however, I recommend you copy the command from my tutorial. Not because I think I'm better than the people who wrote it, just the one in my tutorial is slightly different. So you can see here we're using curl again, so curl -L, capital L, and then git.io/antigen, little triangle, tilde, /antigen. And as you can see here, I've got the little tilde, which means I'm installing it in root. And this one here does not have the little tilde and a slash. And installing this on Windows, I found that if you didn't have this, it's going to basically cause you a number of issues. And all the scripts which are further down here assume that this is installed at this location. You'll see that I'm installing 3 distinct plugins. So I'm installing the Git one. Obviously, when we're working with our terminal, we want to display the Git information, like which branch we're in, that kind of stuff. I've also got Zhush auto suggestions. So before we get this dull, monotone, all in white command, afterwards we're going to get little different colors, which is going to allow us to more easily understand all of our commands. We're going to get some bracket highlighting, loads and loads of beautiful stuff. So again, all you need to do is copy one line in after you've installed Anti-Gen. Job is a good one. The other one that I like using is syntax highlighting. So again, this is going to give you loads of kind of syntax highlighting, as it says on the box. To install the Anti-Gen, as I said, copy this curl command, whack it into a terminal. It's going to do its thing. Open up the Zhush RC file again, copy in your bundles, copy in your names. That's it. That is super simple. Don't need to do anything else. Now, as you can see at the bottom here, I've also got this auto load -U comp init. So this basically just refreshes stuff and you should have it. And then finally, we have this source Zhush Oh My Zhush.sh. This is just going to reload the file after it's done all of these commands. The last extension that we're going to install is the one which is going to make you a productive mofo. And for me, this really is the icing on the cake of how to make our terminal work really well for development. And this extension is called Tmux. So Tmux, the terminal multiplier, basically allows you to run multiple sessions within the same window. Also does some other really cool stuff, but let's have a look at it in action. So when we're working, typically we have 3-4 different terminal windows open, one for Docker, one for running our website. Now, instead of having to have different tabs open and needing to differentiate between all the different sort of open states, what happens if we could just create loads of different terminal windows in the same shell? Yes, it really is as easy as that. And as you can see, with the right keyboard mapping, very easy for me to map and move between all the different terminal windows. Now, what's more, we've been working on these different things. It's been a long day. I've had enough. I'm going home. I want to go to the pub because, that's what I like doing. Let's go. Closed my terminal down, reopened it. What was that you said? All my terminals are in exactly the same state as soon as I close it up. And I didn't have to worry about creating all these sessions over and over again because it's been remembered for me. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, so Tmux does loads and loads of stuff. I am not going to cover all of it in today's video. We have different sessions, we can name sessions. There's bunches and bunches of things you can do. We can install Tmux using apt. So all you need to do is run the apt install Tmux. Now, one of the painful bits about Tmux is that the keys to allow you the different pane navigation, all that kind of stuff out the box is stupidly painful. So the way that Tmux works is you have a prefix, and then after you hit the prefix, then you hit a command key and it does stuff. Out of the box, Control B is the shortcut, and if you try and put your hands on the keyboard right now and do Control B, you can see that it's actually a fair stretch. It's not very easy. Open horizontal layouts and vertical layouts and splitting the pane. You have to do a Control B, and then you have to do a Shift and a 5 on a Windows keyboard. So the first thing, if you want to get value out of Tmux, is after installing it, you basically need to configure it, just make it much more easier. So just like we have our zhush.rc file, we also have our tmux config file, which is .tmux.config, and it lives in root. Now, as you can see, my tmux config file is a lot more complicated compared to the zhush.rc file. What we'll quickly do is kind of run through what it's doing, and then it will hopefully make sense. Basically, all you really need to do if you want to get this all up and running is just ultimately copy and paste this config file. The link is in the description. So the first thing we're doing here is unbinding the default control key. So pressing Control B before we press any command is just a pain in the ass. So what we're going to do is change Control B to Control Z, because Control Z is right by my finger and I'm right-handed, and that makes it easier. Now, if I want to kill a window, I don't have to type in exit, I don't have to mess around. I'm going to do a Control C and then a Control X. So because it's right next to my finger, all I have to do is Control X, and I'm going to close that window. Now again, if I want to create a pane, I'm going to do rebind it here. So left and right will split the window horizontally, down and up vertically. So this means I don't have to remember a single keyboard command. All I need to do is up and down, left and right, and I can get the panes switching left and right, up and down. And then obviously we also need to navigate between all of our different panes. So instead of worrying about keyboard shortcuts, all that kind of stuff, I want to do a Alt and then the up down, left right arrows, and I'm going to move between all the different panes. So even though this is quite a lot of config, all it's basically doing is just saying that I'm mapping everything to the Control Z and then either Control up and down arrow or Alt and up and down arrow. And doing this one change will basically mean Tmux is usable. Another really annoying thing which will grind your gears with Tmux is that every single time that you make a keyboard typo, type in the wrong shortcut, do something silly, you'll get bing, 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 bing. So all of this stuff here is basically turning off everything which is like volume. So we're going to turn off the bell action, we're going to have get rid of visual errors. I don't care if I fail, I know I fail and I won't do what I want to do, so I don't need you going bing, bing to tell me. Another really nice capability of Tmux is the option to customize the default sidebar. Now, when you first install Tmux, the bottom sidebar is going to be a very unassuming green strip which doesn't really have any useful information. However, doing some configuration within the Tmux config file and installing some plugins is going to make the sidebar a lot more useful. So as you can see in my example, I've used the Tmux weather plugin to show what the current weather's like outside. I've also got things like the time and the date. Now when it comes to customizing the sidebar is basically split into 3 different areas. So you have configurations for the left strip, you have configurations for the middle strip, and you have configurations for the right strip. And all of this configuration is done within our tmux.config file. To configure the Tmux status bar, we have to go back to the tmux.config file. And as you can see on screen, line 27 to 43 is all the configuration required to get the status bar in my example. Now, as we can see, we have some configuration for the left, we have some configuration for the right, as well as some just global stats. Now, to get that weather update, I've installed a plugin. We'll get to plugins shortly, but but all we need to do is add in this forecast and install the Tmux weather plugin. Now, the colors and the configuration that you want to use is up to you. Now, it's not the easiest thing in the world to configure the status bar, and that's the reason why I got my configuration online from a website, which is also linked in the related tutorial. To enhance the functionality that Tmux can provide us, we can also install additional plugins. So just like we have anti-gen for Zhush, we also have TPM for Tmux. So TPM is the Tmux package manager. We can install it by cloning a GitHub and then adding in these lines within our Tmux config. One of the great things about using Tmux is the sheer number of plugins that are available for it out of the box. All written by the community and free to install, the plugins will really enhance what you can do within your terminal. Now, it's going to take you ages to go through every single plugin. The ones that I tend to use are Tmux Continuum, Tmux Menu, Tmux Resurrect, and Tmux Weather. And I'll show you what each one of these does. Installing a plugin using TPM is very simple, and I'll walk you through the process. First, we use the set, then we use the -g command, followed by @plugin. Then we simply put in the name of the plugin we want to install. So in order for TPM to successfully install a plugin, we have to start with the TPM command, and at the end we also need to do a run Tmux plugins TPM. So to install the Tmux Resurrect and Continuum plugins, you can see we do set -g @plugin. We put in the plugin names. Now for Continuum, we actually have to put in an additional line as well. So we've got this set -g @continuum-restore on. Doing this will simply install the plugin for us, and we'll have our session, remembrance, and restore. Tmux Continuum constantly saves my session every single time I type, and then Tmux Resurrects will then restore that session when I close my terminal. So it doesn't matter if I reboot the computer, close the terminal, between these two things, everything is fine and dandy, and I don't have to set up everything, don't have to create all my split panes, don't have to do all that troublesome typing. Now if you're using Continuum, as you can see, it's just doing set -g @plugin -tmux -plugins /tmux -continuum. The thing you want to do right down the bottom here is set -g continuum -restore equals on. So you just need to make sure it's turned on. Make sure you've got these two. As I previously mentioned, sometimes remembering the Tmux keyboard shortcut commands can be a challenge. And this is the reason why I recommend you install the Tmux menu plugin. Using the menu plugin means that you can perform certain actions within Tmux even if you've forgotten the correct keyboard combination. Now, installing this plugin is really easy. Within our plugins configuration section, we just need to make the declaration to set -g plugin jack-lu Tmux menus. The other thing we need to make sure is that we have our set -g mouse on. These two things alone will then give you this amazing menu capability. We have made it through the dark side, and we have got a kick-ass terminal that's all working. Now, as you can see, installing things like Zhush, Oh My Zhush, and Tmux, installing a few plugins is going to make your terminal much more useful and valuable. And because I've got some time tracking apps, I know that I spend a good 15-20 minutes a day pretty much within a terminal, messing around, typing around, doing stuff. So after I installed all of these plugins, I noticed about a 30-40% productivity gain just by being able to close sessions, open sessions easily, tab between the different panes. Honestly, once you do this, it is an absolute game changer. So if you haven't already and you want to be a game changer yourself, you can easily be one by hitting the subscribe button. Hitting subscribe basically makes you an absolute legend. So if you don't want to be an absolute legend, don't worry about it. If you've enjoyed this video and I've saved you loads and loads of time and you want to show some appreciation, you can do that by clicking on the like button, helping the YouTube algorithm show my videos to more people, because I would appreciate it. I do a Sunday newsletter which has stuff like Visual Studio Code productivity tips, terminal tips, how to build websites, loads of good stuff. It's all free. It's got an unsubscribe link at the bottom if you don't like it. So, link is below, try that. Otherwise, I hope you had a great time. The sun is out, so I'm going to hit the pub. I recommend you do the same. Even if you're at work right now, just head off, go to the pub, don't tell your boss. And if you want to blame someone, don't blame me. Anyway, have an amazing day wherever you are. Happy coding.